Hey everyone, and welcome to Get Your Hopes Up. I'm Christy Wright, and I'm so glad you're here. Romans 15:13 says, "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by power of the Holy Spirit." Our God is the God of hope, and he wants you to overflow with hope. So let's start our week by getting our hopes up again. Now, today we are talking about some of the do's and don'ts for a season of transition. Today marks the end of summer and the beginning of fall officially, with it being Labor Day. But let's be honest, if you're a parent, then your kids have been back in school mode for like a month now. Many of you are going to meet the teacher nights at school even at the end of July. And aside from the fact that July is still definitely 100% summer, that makes that kind of a really confusing time for you, doesn't it? The days are hot as Hades, and all you want to do is go to the pool. But for some reason, you find yourself shopping for flat front khakis and new tennis shoes and even maybe sweatshirts because why? Well, sometimes those classrooms are real cold. Or maybe you want to take it easy and, enjoy those last long days of summer, but your mom chat apps are blowing up with 3,000 back to school reminders of things you have to remember and you must do. And do not forget this and mark your calendar. And did you do the summer reading list and math packet? And did you fill out the 497 pages of school forms? What? It's still summer, people. You probably at that time even craved a routine, but at the same time, maybe dread the morning insanity of trying to corral everyone out the door. It's a mixture of emotions, isn't it? It's confusing because you're not exactly sure where you are. You aren't fully in summer mode anymore, but at that time, your kids weren't back to school yet either. You were kind of in the in between, a time of transition between seasons. Now, this is just one snapshot of an example of a time of transition, but you've probably gone through many of these in your life. Maybe leaving one job to start another, or to start your own business. That's a season of transition. Being engaged to be married is a season of transition. Being pregnant is in many ways a season of transition. Now, of course, these are tangible examples, but there are also times that God will lead you into a season of transition and you aren't even sure what you're leaving or what God is leading you to. You just sense that something is changing. And regardless of what your situation is, these seasons can be disorienting. They can feel unsettling and uncomfortable and confusing and anxiety inducing. You've got one foot in the past and one in the future. You're leaving behind one thing, but you haven't yet taken hold of the new thing. It's kind of like that trapeze artist imagery, or more recently, Olympic gymnast imagery of letting go of one bar and flying through the air, but you've not yet grabbed the next bar. It's kind of terrifying, honestly. As I was thinking about the transitions I've gone through in my life in these different seasons of the in between, I realized there are some general best practices for these times. When you go through these times, there are a few do's and don'ts for a season of transition. It's kind of like those magazine lists: do's and don'ts of dating, do's and don'ts of fashion. We're going to treat this episode just like that. And I'm going to give you 3 do's and 3 don'ts for a season of the in between. Let's start with the do's. These things will help you stay steady when it feels like everything around you is shaking, and it's going to help you go through these seasons with grace and wisdom. Here are 3 things you should do during a time of transition. Number 1, be present in the moment you're in. This is one of the hardest things to do, especially during a time of transition, because you're tempted to look both directions, right? You're tempted to look backward at whatever is ending or that you're leaving behind. You're tempted maybe even to dwell there. You might get sad or worry or get anxious that this thing is ending. But you're also tempted to look ahead at what's next. And you might even want to rush to get there simply to relieve this unsettling feeling of the in between. You try to fast forward the moment, but if you do, you miss everything good about what's going on right now that is preparing you for what's coming. The best thing you can do when you are going through a transition is to bring your mind back home to your body. Literally, bring your mind back to the present where you are right now. Be where your feet are. So let's do this in a very practical way. Use your senses right now. Where are you right now? Where are you sitting? What do you see? What do you feel? What do you smell or notice? What are you listening to? You listen to me. We have no idea how much of our time we spend with our brain completely disconnected from our body. So when you bring your mind back home to your body, you get to experience the moment you're actually in, which brings a sense of groundedness and clarity and calm, but it also brings relief. You aren't trying to wrangle all these competing thoughts. You bring your mind back home right here, right now in your body. And you know what, friend? God knows where you are, and He has you right here for a reason. You may not like it, but that fact is true, and it's good. I shared a reel on Instagram weeks ago, and this was the gist of it. Do you know why God makes you wait? You're going to be annoyed. Brace yourself. He makes you wait because it's good for you. It's good for you. There is no other reason that God would have you waiting if it were not good for you to wait in some way. And the same is true for you right here, right now, in the in between. Where you are right now may not feel good, but it is good for you. Remind yourself that God is in the here and now. So get yourself present in this moment with Him. Number one, do be present in the moment you're in. Number two, think short term. Now, most of the time, it's good to think long term. I love helping business owners plan for their year. I love to help people plan for their season. In fact, my Start Your Day Planner opens by helping you plan for the season ahead. However, you also need to be able to consider what's right in front of you right now. And this is especially important during a time of transition when you don't necessarily know exactly what's coming next. So, how can you focus on what is right in front of you? How can you handle what is on your plate just today? How can you take this one day at a time and be sensitive to God's leading each individual day? Y'all, there is an immense pressure to have your entire life planned out. We ask kids what they want to be when they grow up. We ask 15-year-olds where they're going to college. We ask young adults what they want to do with their life. They don't know, y'all. Even if they think they know, they don't. Just like we talked about a few weeks ago, God will often change your plans. He will lead you into new things by way of a season of transition. And when He does, think short term. You don't know long-term answers and long-term plans anyway, so stop trying to figure it out. Instead, trust Him each day. Think of how God led the Israelites in the Old Testament. He led them with a fire by night and a cloud by day. He led them by feeding them daily with manna. He led them daily. Think about how He led the disciples in the New Testament. Sometimes those disciples had no idea where they were going next. Now, I know we don't like this, y'all. We don't like the daily trusting of God. We would rather see the path, know the plan. We would rather it be that way, but it's not. Trusting God daily goes against our control freak nature, and it requires us to trust. And it turns out that's what God's after anyway. Trust Him. Trust Him for the information and direction and provision that you need for that day, just that day. During a time of transition, you have permission to think short term. Take this thing one day at a time. Number three, stay open-minded. Whatever God has for you next probably doesn't look like you expected. It almost definitely does not. So if you're taking in all the clues right now and making notes and connecting dots and thinking you've totally got God's moves figured out, spoiler alert, you don't. He's God. He can outsmart you, outwit you, outcontrol you, outthink you. He created you after all. The creation is not greater than the creator. He very likely has something planned that you do not see coming. He's also a very good father who loves to surprise you. So when something comes your way and it looks nothing like you had in mind, be open minded. It doesn't mean it's not from God just because it looks different than you thought. I think about my teens and 20s when I dreamt of the man that I would marry. And my entire life, people always said to me, "You are so strong that you're going to have to marry a very strong man. He's going to have to be so strong. I just see you marrying someone so strong." So I pictured someone that is even more extroverted than me, even more confident and aggressive and competitive and intense than me. That's what I pictured when I thought of strength. And then God gave me Matt. And Matt is one of the strongest people I have ever met in my entire life. And it looks nothing like I thought. His self control, his humility, his quiet strength, his quiet, steady, unwavering confidence and loyalty and dedication is something I've never seen in my life. And it all stems from this beautiful, controlled strength. Matt's not loud. He's not going to get in your face. He's not going to push anybody around. He's not even extroverted. And he's probably the strongest person I've ever met. Keep your mind open, friend. Whatever God has for you will not look like you think. It's better. So keep your mind open and you won't miss what he has for you on the other side of this time of transition. Stay open-minded. All right, there are your do's. Do be present in the moment you're in. Do think short term and do stay open-minded. Let's talk about a few don'ts. Number one, don't make any big commitments. Now, I'm going to give you a really silly example that is not a big commitment at all, but it just highlights the point here. So in the spring of this year, I got frustrated that Mary Grace had her twin mattress on the floor of our lake house bathroom. So she had been sleeping on the floor when we bought that house. We only had 2 kids. When we had Mary Grace, we put a little pack and play in the bathroom. When she got bigger, we put a crib in the bathroom. And when she got still bigger yet, we put a twin mattress in the bathroom. So she has been sleeping on a twin mattress on the floor. Well, in case you're not familiar with lakes or bodies of water, they attract spiders, y'all. So spiders are always a struggle in a lake house. So I always worried that spiders were going to crawl on her bed or on her during the night because that mattress was on the floor. I really wanted to put a twin bed in there. Well, after feeling like God was going to have us move at the lake for months, maybe even years, I finally decided in April, all right, I'm just going to buy a twin bed. Like, this is not a big commitment. I'm going to buy it on Facebook Marketplace. I'm not going to spend much money. I just need to get this twin bed off the floor. And the Lord told me no. He said, don't buy that bed. And I said, Lord, you've been saying we're going to move for years now. I hear you. I believe you. I'm with you. Also, the timeline is like longer than I thought. So I'm going to go ahead and get this twin bed, Lord. And then if we need to move it again, we'll move it again. And he said, you can buy it, but you will not be in this house in a month. Can I tell you something, friend? I got a twin bed on Facebook Marketplace. I put that sucker together. It was $100, real cute, tucked it in the corner and made Mary Grace's bed. And I was taking it apart less than 30 days later when we moved our lake house. Don't make any big commitments. A twin bed, thankfully, is not a big commitment. But when you are in a season of transition, you do not know what is coming. So don't lock yourself into something that is wrong based on your limited information or based on the fact that you think God's going to take forever. If you are in a season of transition, be open-minded, be open-handed, and do not make any big commitments because you have no idea what's around the corner. It may even be quicker than you think. So number one of your don'ts, don't make any big commitments. Number two, don't make any assumptions. It's really easy to grasp for information during a time of transition because it's so unsettling. And you start making assumptions and you're plotting timelines and you're trying to anticipate God's moves and you're connecting dots and you're going, I bet he's going to do this. So you just feel better about the unsettling feeling. Can I just tell you, you're probably wrong. You are. You have limited information. You have no idea what's around the corner, and you definitely don't know his timeline. Don't make any assumptions. I assumed when God had me go to seminary that he was having me go to seminary to get a degree. And then when I left my corporate job, I assumed God was having me leave to go to seminary full time. And I assumed I would be in seminary full time until I got that degree. All of those assumptions were wrong. Every single one of them. I wasn't in seminary to get a degree, and I wasn't supposed to go full time in seminary when I left my corporate job. Don't make any assumptions. You don't know God's moves. So instead, just sit in the unknown, the discomfort, pray, rest, and rely on him. Don't jump ahead and don't make any assumptions. And then number 3 of your don'ts, don't get stuck there. Transition is not a way of life. There is a season to move from one place to the next, and there is a season to settle. Don't get stuck in the in-between because you ignore God's voice when he is leading you through the Jordan or out of the wilderness or into your promised land. Don't get stuck in a place where you were only meant to pass through. This is temporary. This is not your permanent destination. Don't get stuck there. All right, y'all. Those are your do's and don'ts for a season of transition. And if you need an additional resource on going through a season of transition, I highly recommend the devotional called The Threshold by my friend Craig Cooney. I went through this devotional in the spring and the summer, and y'all, it was so on point, so accurate, and so life-giving to me. So I highly recommend that. And I will put the link to that devotional in my show notes. All right, let's do a quick recap of your do's and don'ts during transition. Number 1, do be present in the moment you're in. Number 2, do think short term. Number 3, do stay open-minded. And then let's talk about the don'ts. Number 1, don't make any big commitments. Don't make any assumptions, and don't get stuck there. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining me for Get Your Hopes Up. I love hanging out with you every Monday to help you get to know God, get closer to him, and get your hopes up again. Be sure to share this episode on Instagram and Facebook so other people can get their hopes up as well. And then follow the Christy Wright podcast channel so you never miss a new show. Then I'll see you next week for another new episode of Get Your Hopes Up.